time for my vineyard ramble. So as you can see, I'm right in a vineyard this morning, and we're going to be talking MACABEU, and we're going to be looking at the old vines and why old vines are better, or why I think old vines are better. But just before we kick off, you can see the weather, a little bit cloudy, not quite as bright as yesterday, and there's one very good reason for that. That's because it's a sea breeze. So I'm actually facing over to the Chateau d'Aguila. It's a bit in the shadows over here, and I can feel the wind on my face. So that's coming off the sea. Not our favourite wind, the marin. We prefer the tramontagne, but at least it's not raining, and it's not great for mildew, but as long as it doesn't rain, we should be okay, because mildew, it needs the damp, it needs rain droplets as well. So that wind coming off the sea, the marin over there, as you can see, I'm like a little bit down at the bottom of the vineyard today. So I'll just point out the Languedoc is over in this direction. Or you can see our vines actually. So you can see how much they've grown. Look at these. Whoa, monster MACABEU. And the Tuchan is behind me. But to give you a better idea, I just showed you this at the end. Thank you, my little vine, for holding the tea towel. So here you can see the tea towels are now on the site. And if you look on here, we are in the Colombier vineyard. So you see there, the Colombier. So it's right near our house. In actual fact, I didn't need Diane this morning, just walked up here. Colombier. And I've brought you to, again, one of our really rare vines. It's MACABEU. Just before I forget as well, thank you to everybody who sent the photos for Roger. He's been inundated, so keep them coming. Roger did want to know who was looking at him, and you've definitely sent them over. So he's loving looking at all the photos that you've sent over for him. So thanks very, very much for that. Let's do the emoji competition, and today you might notice that Nikki is not with us. Nikki's not with us because she's taken her son Fred to go and look at aeroplanes. So the first person to put 4 aeroplanes for Fred on the screen is going to win some herbs. So first person to put 4 aeroplanes for Fred on the screen, and Nikki will be back with us tomorrow, but she's having a bit of plane spotting this morning. So back to the vines, the MACABEU. Right, so here we go. Now, you may be able to see that the leaves here are a bit paler in colour. So we've got a lovely pale colour, and that's very typical of the MACABEU. Let's just have a look at the leaves here. So lovely sort of pale pastel green almost. A little bit of indentation on the top. Quite distinct lobes. I think it was Dan who won the aeroplane competition. Well done, Dan. So back to the MACABEU leaf. So quite indented. And you've got the 5 lobes, not quite as pronounced as on the Carignan. And if you turn it over, you've got little hairs on the back. So MACABEU, it's a white grape. It makes a white wine. And in actual fact, this is probably one of the very last existing MACABEU vines in the village of Tuchan. So MACABEU was planted back in the 70s when it was really popular for the sweet wine. So MACABEU around here, it's a great grape if you want a high yield. It produces, you know, when you see pictures of people harvesting and they're holding up those massive bunches of grapes, those, if they're white, they could be MACABEU. It produces just the most wonderfully big grapes, bunches of grapes. So very high yielding, which is, as you know, not great for the quality of the wine. So what we've done here is these are old vines. So these are about 70-year-old MACABEU. It means they naturally produce a lower yield because they're older. And the low yield really helps to concentrate not just the grapes but the quality as well. So we make about 1,000 bottles of MACABEU, single varietal, just from this vineyard, and you get an astonishing quality of wine. You actually get a quality of wine that can age. So it's a white wine, but it can age really well. It's sort of nutty, a bit of fennel, fruity style to it as well. Really, really interesting. And we'll be tasting it on Friday on the Rock if you want to know more. But back to the vines, and I mentioned old vines. So old vines. Why am I so mad about these old vines? In Tuchan, it's really, really dry climate. So old vines means that their root system goes a lot deeper. So the roots go about 5 meters, perhaps even further down through the soils. So it means that they can actually get the water that they so desperately need in the summer, and they always remain lush. So old vines are really good root structure. Also, you can see that the branches, they're in gobelet here. So the gobelet form means that the branches actually cover the soil better in the summer, so that limits evaporation as well. But old vines, much better for low yields, naturally low yielding, and for getting water, so keeping the plants nice and healthy. And when we say old vines though, you might think, yeah, but what is an old vine? In actual fact, there's no legal definition of an old vine. An old vine, you can put it on a label and it can mean anything, literally anything from 5 years up to 200 years. The oldest vine, if you're thinking how old can a vine get, the oldest vine is actually in Hampton Court Palace. It's called the Great Vine, and it dates back to 1769 when it was transplanted. So 1769, and it's still producing grapes, and actually had its best vintage in 2001. So often people ask me, well, how long can you keep the old vines for? And it's basically, if you look after them well, it's as long as they want to keep going. These, I said, are like 70 years old, and look at them. I mean, they're just absolutely beautiful. So if you have any questions, please put them at the bottom in the question box, and I can look at them at the end. And I thought, okay, we'd have a quick pronunciation lesson here, because in France, to say old vines, you may have seen it on labels, and it's actually vieille vigne. So not easy to pronounce, old vines, vieille vigne in French. So I've thought of a really clever way of knowing how to say it. So if you just say V, can I hear you? Like V, like the letter V. So V, and you go, yay, okay? V, yay. Can I hear you? V, yay, vieille. And then for the vigne, or the vine, all you need to do is think about a bean, so bean, and put a V instead of the B at the beginning. So instead of bean, you say vigne. Okay? Can I hear you? V, yay, vigne. Can I hear you? V, yay, vigne. Vieille, I can hear you. It's sounding really, really good. You've even got the local accent in there. Vieille vigne. So vieille vigne is how the French say old vine. But beware of old vine, because old vine can mean a lot of different things in the age of the vines. And you really need to know the producer to know how old the vines are in that particular wine. So vieille vigne. Vieille vigne. For those of you just joining us, don't worry, it's going to be on Instagram Live afterwards. You've just missed the lesson on how to pronounce vieille vigne in French. It's going to be on Instagram Live TV, and also all of these videos are on YouTube. So Domaine Jones YouTube, if you miss any or you want to go back, for example, we were in this vineyard about 8 weeks ago. So if you want to go back to look at the MACABEU and how it was 8 weeks ago, go onto my YouTube channel, Domaine Jones, and you can look at everything. But look at this soil here. So lovely limestone clay soil, just perfect. You can imagine the roots of the vines getting through this soil and able to find water to feed the leaves and the grapes. Just gorgeous, even though it's a bit of a cloudy day, just gorgeous. Anyway, I'm meant to be walking up this hill here because I want to show you something really special up here. You know, like at Domaine Jones, we always look after our old vines. I often say it's a bit like a retirement home for old vines, and we're doing a little experiment at Domaine Jones in our MACABEU. So just bring you up here. It's a bit of a steep hill, and just show you some grapes on the way. So here you can see some of the leaves, they look a bit battered. They're actually battered by the wind, so that's wind damage rather than any disease. There you see that it's actually been torn by the wind, and then we can just make out, oh look, but you can see already massive bunches of MACABEU. So we at Domaine Jones, we don't want too many. So these old vines on the poor soils really reduce the yield naturally on the MACABEU. You can just see a leaf here with those little hairs. Look at those lovely bunch of MACABEU. So these are white grape. Some more. And up we go. We're actually going to go and see Gilles, who you met last week, and Cécile. Cécile's just started working with us just for a quick work experience for a couple of months. But here we are. Morning!
Good morning.
Morning. Right, let's go and have a word with Gilles, because look at this. Can you see this? So Gilles actually spreading. Si tu continues un peu, je montre le... So Gilles actually spreading something around the vines. Can you see that? Right, and now let's have a word with Gilles to find out what he's doing. On peut regarder ta fourche là, le râteau. So this is for those of you who were with us on Friday with Roger in his garden. You'll recognise this. This is a Tuchan rake. So definitely not bought at B&Q, but probably homemade by the blacksmith in the village. So this is the rake you're using. Morning, Gilles.
Good morning, everyone.
So could you just explain what this is?
Okay. J'habite dans un petit J'habite dans un petit coin de garrigue.
Okay.
Et en fait, je suis obligé de débroussailler à cause du risque de feu.
Okay. So just take the micro. You might get the wind noise on this, but you can hear Gilles better. So Gilles says that Gilles lives in this most amazing sort of farmhouse, a stone farmhouse in the Garrigue, natural countryside, and they're slowly doing it up with his wife. So no water, no electricity, a challenge. And Gilles was saying that at the weekend they have to cut down the trees to make sure that it's not a fire risk.
Et donc du coup, on avait énormément de tas de branches et on les a broyées.
So in fact, they ended up with loads of branches. Let's have a look of trees. Et comme arbre, c'est quoi?
Alors, donc c'est du genévrier, du buis et du chêne vert.
Okay, so these are the trees that Gilles mulched or crushed at the weekend. He hired a mulcher and he's mulched the trees. So in this you've got a mixture of oak, juniper and boxwood. So a nice local garrigue mixture. Et après, donc, tu l'as broyé.
Et on l'a broyé et du coup on l'a descendu et on a posé des tas en haut.
Oh yeah, okay. So then they mulched it up, brought it down in the trailer, and here we've put piles of it that we're now, with the Tuchan rake, we're now spreading out. I can see that. Okay, and the benefits of doing that, merci Gilles, je te laisse let him get on with his Tuchan raking. The benefits of doing this, we hope, as I say, we've never done this before, it's a bit of an experiment, is it's going to reduce evaporation, so keep the moisture in the water, in the soil during the summer. And also it's going to stop the weeds from growing. So you may sort of think, well, I do that in my garden. I put it around my geraniums or my strawberries. Exactly the same idea, just we've never done it before. So it'd be good to see if it actually works. I think one of my worries about it is when it gets too windy, I think it might just all blow down to the bottom of the vineyard. But anyway, we will see. As I say, we like to look after our old vine MACABEU here. So we'll keep you posted. Just say hello to Cécile, who's joined us from Purpan. Salut Cécile! So Cécile, you'll be seeing more of Cécile over the coming months. Cécile has joined us from, her granny lives in the village, so she's doing some work experience with us right up to the harvest and after the harvest. So I'll leave those two to get on raking that out, and let me take a look at your questions. Oh, so lovely up here. So, question here from Adam. How old is your oldest vine? Okay, in Tuchan, it's quite difficult to know the precise age of a vine. It goes a lot on people's memories, and if Roger remembers a vine being planted, then we've got a good idea of the date of that vineyard. But back in the 70s, the cooperative actually had to classify all of the vineyards in the village because there was a big restructuration plan underway. So it meant that they wanted to improve the grape varieties that were being planted. So you had to know what was in the vineyards to know if a farmer was going to rip it up and replant it with something different. So they actually classified all of the vineyards in this valley, but they had to put the age, but when they didn't know or nobody could remember when it was planted, they just put 1905. So they just put the date 1905. That was just post-phylloxera. So basically it's 115 years ago. If nobody could remember exactly when they'd been planted, they put that they were post-phylloxera, so 1905 here. But our oldest vine, we've got some of those 115-year-old vines that we look after. These MACABEU are a little bit younger because they would have been planted originally to make a sweet wine, so they would have gone to a sweet Rivesaltes in the 70s. That's when these would have been planted. But our Carignan up to 110 years old, if not 115. So one from Nick, what's the spacing of these vines? So this, you can see it's very narrow. Actually, where we are here, it's impossible to get anything through to plough. So they're planted a horse width apart, so 1,50 meters. So this would normally be, it would be our Chuniard Mignon that comes up here to plough. But because of the slope, I don't know if you can get an idea of the slope here, because of the slope we can't do that, and that's another reason why, because we haven't been able to plough, we thought it'd be good to put this the wood around the vines. So it's 1,50 meters, and also they're planted in squares, so it's 1,50 meters by 1,50 meters, so that the horse could have crisscrossed on the ploughing. So how old are the vines? I've answered those. I'm just looking at them. So how do you reduce the yield on the MACABEU? Basically on this MACABEU, because the yield reduces naturally because it's old vines. Because they're really old vines, it's a naturally lower yield than a young, vigorous vine. Also, you can see the soils that we walked through earlier on, very poor soils, and minimal fertiliser on this particular vine just to keep those yields really low. We'd make about the equivalent, the yield's about 25 hectolitres per hectare, so extremely low. That's about 3,000 bottles per hectare, so really, really low. The MACABEU grape variety is actually really popular in Spain. It's a Spanish grape mainly. You may have heard of it. It's called Viura or MACABEU in Spain, and it goes into cava production or white Rioja. But they will get yields like 4 times bigger than what we get in our little tiny vineyard here. As I said, this is like one of the very last remaining MACABEU vineyards. I asked Jean-Marc if he knew any other MACABEU vineyards this morning, and he goes, no, actually, I don't. There may be a couple more in Paziol. Paziol was very famous in the local area back in the 70s for making a fortified MACABEU wine. But since then, people have ripped them up. They've planted other things with the decline of the sweet wine market. We're onto the mildew. How susceptible is it to mildew? It is. It's not too bad actually. If you compare the vine to the one we were in yesterday, just take a look here. You can see, you can recognise this now, the secondary spots here. So there are a couple, but as we saw, that's a tiny bunch there. There's absolutely no damage. No bunches on there. No damage to the grapes at all. They're all, there we go, really healthy. So yes, I mean, it's one of those years. I think most varieties this year have got some spots of mildew, but here, totally in control. Right, I need to get out. I think I'm in their way for spreading. Come down. So it's totally in control. So a little less susceptible than the Carignan and the Grenache. So one from Gareth. to end on. So does the mulch add anything to the flavour of the wine? Well, no, I don't think so. That's not the aim of doing it. It'd be nice because it is oak. Did you see that? We've got bits of, it is oak in there as well. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could put this on the vineyard and you came out with an oaked wine? Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. So no, it's more, well, it's definitely just to protect the soil. So this is more a sort of vineyard experiment rather than on the wines. But what a wonderful idea if that did happen. So thank you very much for all of your questions. It's been very exciting showing you the MACABEU, one of the last MACABEU vineyards here. And have a lovely day. So same time, different vine tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Bye.